Welcome to the Wasteland. I'm Sebastian from Again Reviews, and thank you for joining us for another little bit of what we call News from the Wasteland. This is our weekly podcast where we gather around the campfire and discuss our thoughts on the state of the proverbial hellscape that is pop culture. And I know that it's been a long time since we've done one of these. Don't worry, none of us are dead, thankfully. But we all have been busy, and some of us haven't really been feeling it up at our 100%. But thankfully, all of that is now over and done with, and we even have a couple of announcements here to make. But before we do so, today we're going to keep it very short. It's just going to be me and another friend of mine who has still decided to join us today. But regardless, ladies and gentlemen and others, the podcast is back, and so is the rest of the channel. So, sir, would you care to introduce yourself to the world?
Hey guys, what's up? This is Diego here at Again Reviews, back again for yet another trek into this desolate wasteland. I finally got my neuro implants to stop slapping me in the face every time I wake up. These bionic arms are ready to lift anything, as long as it's below 50 pounds.
I told you not to go with the ones from Cyberpunk 2077. That shit was gonna be buggy and broken no matter what would happen.
Yeah, man, I can't say I've learned my lesson because I'm looking at the legs next.
Yeesh. Well, at least we were able to get that sorted out. In my case, I had to basically go on a little bit of a journey to try to relax myself because there's been a lot of crazy things that have been happening over the past couple of months, and my mental state was not where it was supposed to be. Thankfully, though, even though today is relatively short, at the very least, I can happily say that the channel is back in order, and we even have a few announcements here to make. The first one here, and to be fair, this is an announcement that will not necessarily be starting right now, but will definitely be happening in the future, is that starting in 2023, I personally will no longer be covering movie reviews. Anything that I will be doing from here on in is going to be completely different. As for what movie reviews are going to be made here on the channel, that honor is going to be taken directly to Diego, who is not only good at what he does, but he always manages to find time in his extremely busy schedule to pump out the best video reviews that he can make for some of the best or worst movies that we're able to cover here on the channel.
Thank you for this incredible responsibility, Sebastian. I'm honored that you would trust me with it, and I will do my best not to let you down. I've already started working on my first review back, and I'm not going to spoil what it is yet, but let's just say that it's going to be big, it's going to be meta, and I'm really excited to let you guys know what I think about this particular movie. So hopefully you guys are as excited about this as I am.
Oh, I'm excited for it. I'm ready to dig on this, if you know what I'm saying. As
Oh
for
gosh.
As for me, hey, I'm just saying. As for me, I'm instead going to be taking a back seat and work on quality over quantity. And instead of doing movie reviews like I was trying to do in the beginning, I'm instead going to focus on what I'm best at, which is doing video essays, researching and writing and talking about certain topics when it comes to movies, video games, and others. And one of these films that I'm going to be talking about is going to be of a certain movie that a particular YouTuber requested for me not too long ago. That is music and lyrics, and the YouTuber in question is somebody you might have heard of by the name of Wade in the Wings. Yes, that Wade in the Wings. I will be covering this movie and I will be releasing my review for it very, very soon. And in the process, I'm also working on two big projects, which are going to be my last big things for 2022 and moving forward. For 2023, I have a very special project that I'm going to be working on, which will be my gateway into starting the channel back online for me personally. And one of these movies that I'm going to be talking about is going to be The Greatest Showman, which will be my first collaboration with KateCast, or rather what should have been my first collaboration with KateCast before we did our Oscars favorite video. And this was supposed to be released in 2021, but shit happened and now it's going to be released hopefully by the end of the year. And other than that, there's another particular project that I'm working on, but you're going to have to wait and see. Let's just say it involves a certain boy with a certain cast who deserves to have his cast smashed on it by Jack Nicholson in The Departed.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and oh my god, I can't wait for you to rip into that.
Oh, I'm writing that review as we speak. The script is only halfway through, but good lord, I don't think I have ever been as pissed off about anything as I was for this. And god damn it, it's a long time coming, but let's be positive. Let's try to be positive just for this particular video, which
Right.
in this case, what we're going to be talking about today is going to be for sequels on movies that should have been made, or rather, movies that deserve sequels. And I personally didn't really think too much about this one, but when you and Emmanuel brought it up, I was actually very curious about it. So let's go ahead and maybe if you want, you can start us off here because this was technically your idea.
Yes, I would be honored to. So, the first one is not a sequel to a beloved movie, or at least not particularly to most people, but it is a movie that I think has a lot of potential to be improved upon and take the franchise in a new direction. So, I'm talking about a movie that was released in 2004. It's an action sci-fi fantasy film starring Hugh Jackman, and it is Van Helsing. So Van Helsing is not the most beloved monster movie of all time. That's putting it lightly. But in terms of the concept of it, this guy who just like is just a badass who hunts monsters for a living, and it has like this rich backstory. You can tell that this is a very lived-in character. Is fascinating, and it could have been really good if handled right. But unfortunately, it was written and directed by Stephen Sommers, who may have directed the Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser back in 1999, but he's had better days, let's just put it at that. And not to be disrespectful to the memory of his father, which is the movie that he dedicated this film to, but the movie could have been improved upon. And a sequel needs to be able to capture the fun adventure spirit of the original without falling into the same pitfalls of cheesiness that the original did, and for that reason, I propose this idea for the plot of the sequel. So we focus on Van Helsing at the turn of the century. It's the year 1900 after the first one took place in 1883 or 84, I forget. Van Helsing has moved to America to leave his life of monster hunting behind after everything that happened with Dracula and the death of Kate Beckinsale's character, Anna Valerius. And this ended up haunting him and traumatizing him. And he's decided, hey, you know what? I'm tired of the people I care about getting hurt from my career and all this collateral damage. I am going to retire from monster hunting. But suddenly, for one reason or another that I'm sure the screenwriters will figure out, he's thrust back into the world of monster hunting when he has to fight the Jersey Devil. And this puts him back into the spotlight because now he's fighting all the American cryptids. His victory against this monster thrusts him back into the spotlight, and while he becomes a symbol of hope for the little people against the forces of evil, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that, again, I'm sure the screenwriters can figure out. But this will put him on a collision course with guys like the Chupacabra, Bigfoot, and even like legendary monsters like the Mothman and stuff. And this could give this franchise legs for years to come and hopefully spawn even more sequels. It could not only serve as a reboot to the franchise, but also take it in a new and more fun direction.
Oh my god. Like, I like the idea that you're going with here, but the minute you brought up Mothman, my fight or flight response is immediately activated. Just, oh god damn it. Okay, so this is not to get off topic here, but anybody who knows anything about me knows that the Mothman is one of the biggest things that I am personally afraid of. Because Mothman scares the shit out of me, and for one reason. Do you remember Unsolved Mysteries?
I feel like I've seen a clip of it on YouTube. I think I know what you're talking about.
So, okay, picture this. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I just woke up from a nightmare. I woke up and I couldn't go back to sleep. I turned on my TV to try to relax a little bit. As I'm surfing through the channels, I come across this show, which is Unsolved Mysteries. I knew what the show was, I just never actually watched it. And what they're showing is a episode talking about the Mothman, which was this cryptid that lurks around Point Pleasant, West Virginia, who may or may not have been involved in the collapse of the Silver Bridge that killed over 36 people. And because Unsolved Mysteries likes to do a lot of very realistic recreations or reenactments, they actually showed what the Mothman looks like, and the eyes, the visuals, the way that it looked, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I was terrified. And I look at this and I'm just horrified by what I'm seeing here. And it left me so horrified that I couldn't sleep for over a month.
Okay, so out of respect for anybody who may have been negatively affected by this or may feel apprehensive to it, doesn't necessarily have to include Mothman in the film. I don't understand if this had any context on real life. I don't know yet if this is like the Slender Man, where it later turned out that this creepypasta influenced an actual real stabbing, an actual real tragedy that happened. But one thing that the original Van Helsing failed to capture was the fact that these monsters were supposed to be scary. Dracula is supposed to be scary. The Wolfman is supposed to be scary. Uh, Frankenstein's monster is supposed to be scary. All these monsters, they're not necessarily supposed to be fun. Don't get me wrong, you can still have a fun action adventure, but you need to really capture the spirit of what these monsters are. And that's one of the things that I feel like this sequel could actually improve upon.
Oh, I agree 100%. And what I think is really cool about fighting cryptids like the Jersey Devil and even Mothman for that matter is you can actually expand upon them and basically just go crazy with the visuals and basically do them in a way that is creative for the people involved in it. Like, imagine, oh my god, imagine for a second if these monsters were designed by Guillermo del Toro.
That would be sweet. They should honestly, Guillermo del Toro would be my pick to direct a sequel to Van Helsing.
Oh my god, I would actually lose my fucking mind. Imagine creature designs by Del Toro, and he comes up with his version of the Jersey Devil, of Mothman, of the Chupacabra. Hell, even maybe have the Dover Demon or the Lizard Man or whatever the hell. At this point, the sky's the limit. And personally, this sounds much cooler than what the original Van Helsing was. Because I looked at the original Van Helsing and I just thought to myself, this is like a really crappy version of what Castlevania did on the NES.
Yeah, I was going to mention that now that the CGI has aged terribly, and all these monsters look like video game characters.
That's an insult to video game characters. The CG in this movie was terrible then, and it's terrible now.
You're absolutely right. Oh,
Good
God.
lord. Oh my god. Have you it's not as bad. I want to say, like, if I have one nice thing to say is that it's not as bad as the CGI for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but it's definitely close. It's really, really close.
You know what really sucks is that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde were in the original Van Helsing,
Oh my god, that is true.
and they look terrible.
Jesus Christ, I completely forgot about that.
Again, this is where we could really improve on the franchise. Look, just because the first movie was bad doesn't mean any of its sequels have to be.
Exactly. Like you have a lot of good material here, and it was kind of wasted on a really lame script and really terrible visuals. Like I
Yeah.
see the potential for it basically being improved upon by a sequel, like a sort of like a Top Gun Maverick, if you want to call it that, where we see Van Helsing training a new generation of hunters.
That could actually be cool, but I feel like it'd be played out at this point. I
That
mean,
is true.
it all depends on the execution, and it all depends on who the person is behind the camera.
Again, that is true, and that's why I think Del Toro would be the best fit for this. Because if anybody knows creatures and who knows how to make a very scary, a very macabre story, while also finding a way to make it very beautiful and very mystical and mysterious and wonderful, it's gotta be him. I don't see anybody else who could pull that shit off.
Right. And by the way, to any movie producers or executives that are listening to this, we claim royalties in perpetuity for any and all profits that these movie ideas make.
100%.
Copyright Diego and Sebastian.
Exactly. If you guys want this shit to go anywhere, you know where to find us. We're not that far behind.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I have not thought about Van Helsing for years. That is that is insane. And honestly, I think a sequel for that would definitely improve on it, because even though the first movie was crap, it was crap that had potential. But this is also a case where I don't think they're ever going to want to touch this because this is during the time where basically every big studio was trying to do its own like big horror movie. They did this because Underworld did it, and every other studio wanted to basically capitalize on it. And Underworld, first of all, Underworld is already a piece of shit to try to emulate because Underworld, the first movie and every other sequel was terrible. None of those
It,
movies are good.
the first one was mid at best. It was mid at best. I was bored throughout like a majority of it.
Like, this is a movie that was popular because of a couple of action scenes, and that was it. And also Kate Beckinsale in spandex. But Kate Beckinsale looks great no matter what. So why the hell do I want to see her in a movie where she's basically Tomb Raider with no because she's a vampire, she has basically no stakes whatsoever. Stakes, get it? But Underworld was a terrible example of studios trying to basically take their stake their claim on a well that wasn't necessarily dried, but just wasn't really there. Van Helsing was an unfortunate victim of that. It was a victim of trend chasing. And I feel like if they decided to work on this and release it for the Halloween season, even if the movie isn't reviewed the best, it can still be a big hit amongst the horror movie crowd. Because let's be honest, not all horror movies are that good, and the very few that are the ones that try to be different but also have something intelligent to say. That's why movies like Happy Death Day, Get Out, and Us managed to be not only good with the critics but also good with the box office. And with a movie like Van Helsing, you can be fun and entertaining without necessarily needing to be big or anything like that, as long as what you're doing is enjoyable but also happens to be good.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true.
Oh my goodness! I think Van Helsing's definitely overdue for for a new movie, especially if they decide to if they decide to bring back Hugh Jackman. But then again, I think he's pretty busy getting his basically sucking up to Ryan Reynolds and Disney.
Hey, I'm not that I'm complaining.
Me neither. And if it pisses off the fans of Logan who are upset thinking, but won't this basically make the movie's ending meaningless? Who the fuck cares? It's a movie. Get over it.
You're talking to the wrong guy about that because I would be cheering that they're retconning Logan.
Oh my goodness! I swear to God, you and I would basically just be standing there, a whole bunch of people coming out at us, just like, "How dare you besmirch Logan?" And I'm like, "I like Logan. He doesn't. You want to take out your anger? You do it to him. I'm just a bystander. I'm just an innocent
That's
bystander watching everything play out, eating popcorn."
that's a whole rabbit hole that you don't want to go down with me, dude. I'm
Hey,
telling you.
speaking of which, there is one particular rabbit hole that I've always wanted to see get explored upon a little more, which is where I lead it to my particular movie. Uh, this is a movie that came out in 2014. It was directed by Richard Linklater. It was an Academy Award winning masterpiece called Boyhood.
Yes.
Oh my
Boyhood is awesome. I love Boyhood.
I know it was my favorite movie of 2014 and one that I was extremely disappointed to see lose to fucking Birdman in the Oscars. God. Okay, I'm not gonna talk about Iñárritu because his career looks like it's about to go down the toilet because of Bardo, but or Barnum, whatever the hell that movie of his is called. All I know is it's getting shit on by critics, and everyone seems to not know what exactly they think about the movie. So either way, I'm excited for that. Not for the movie, but for the shitstorm that's coming out because of it. Now, back to Boyhood. This is a movie that was it had a quote unquote gimmick, which is what a lot of people love to make fun of it these days. Which, if you really call it a gimmick, is kind of a stupid thing because it's not so much a gimmick as much as it is a style that the director Richard Linklater likes to do for some of his movies. And that is, this is a movie that was shot in between certain times in a span of 12 years, following a cast of characters by a cast of people who stayed in production for as long as the movie was being made. And this is a movie that follows the passage of time between a child named Mason who basically goes through the trials and tribulations of having to grow up, not just with his relationship with his mother and his sister, but also romances, friends, fathers that come and go. And it's a I guess the word here is sort of bittersweet and also sweet kind of film that basically teaches you that yes, not everything in your past may have been as good as you remember. Sometimes there were happy memories, but most of the time it was sadness upon sadness. But during that sadness, there's little moments of happiness sprinkled in between. And those little moments that you remember might be bigger than you actually remember. And this is a film that really emotionally touched me in so many ways, especially because I kind of related to Mason quite a bit. Not necessarily with the character, even though there were things about him that I felt I connected with, like the fact that he was like the opening scene of the movie where he's sitting and when he's at his school and his mom comes to pick him up from school. That scene felt so terrifyingly visceral for me because it legitimately felt like I was actually back in school in 2006 where this was clearly being shot in, and it was actually kind of scary for me, and it made me feel not necessarily nostalgic but just sad. And his relationship with his mother, played beautifully by Patricia Arquette, is just wonderful. And I was very happy to see her win the Oscar because this woman basically reminded me a lot of my mother, and I loved seeing her on screen every time she was on. And for me, this movie ended on such a perfect note. Boyhood has officially ended, and now adulthood comes in. And that's where the sequel, in my opinion, should go. Focusing on Mason's college years, graduation, relationships, scandals, or any other kind of stuff that happens when you're an adult, trying to move into a new house, trying to get a mortgage, trying to get a new car, basically all of the necessary bullshit that adults like us have to go through nowadays. And the way that I see it, I want it to end at the age of 35 because by the age of 35 is pretty much the age where a lot of people are essentially already living at their peak, as they're getting married, they have a new house, they're about to have children soon, or maybe they already have children, or basically it's the to me it's like the case in point Americana age where people can already say my life is basically over and it's now my turn to look over and see other people's lives start to grow up from here. And from here on in, my life is essentially just I'm only here to make sure that others are being provided for and making sure that they grow up with a happier life and a better life than the one that I had.
Yeah, I mean, holy shit, you hit this right on the head. I can totally see how a sequel to Boyhood would be actually really great. The thing about like growing up and sort of learning what it means to be an adult and eventually transitioning into parenthood by the end, I think could actually be like a great emotional connector for the audience because it could actually lend like a sort of perspective that people who are not parents haven't seen before. Like, let's say, for example, you're an adult and you're just out there living your life and you decide, hey, maybe I'm not sure that I want to have children. This could potentially change some people's minds, and not necessarily in like a pushing an agenda type of a way, but like in a way that I guess would leave you open to the possibility that it might happen someday. And just in general, there are a lot of things that could happen with the sequel that could make it just as unique as the first one, and could even have it even live up to the highs that the first one delivered on. Because, like you said, when at the beginning of the film, this movie was like very nostalgic in this weird way that like few movies nowadays have captured. Because it's like taking us back through time, and this could potentially give us like insight into what it was when we were younger and sort of give us a new perspective on what childhood actually meant. Well, this could do the same for adulthood. It's like, hey, maybe this is a way for us to check ourselves. So I completely agree with you. I think this could actually be a really good idea.
Hmm. Plus, as somebody who is about to turn 30 next year, I think it would be interesting to see just how different this kid's life might have been since he actually got to go to college, but did he ever actually graduate? I don't know. We never get to see that because it ends just as he's entering. and we don't know what happens to him. We don't know if he graduates, or I don't know if he dropped out like I did. I dropped out of college, and I've been doing relatively fine ever since. Uh, oh,
Well,
I.
either way, I think
Mm.
whether he drops out or finishes college, I think it could relate to a whole bunch of different people. And if not, at the very least, offer like a new perspective on, hey, just because you go through things that different things that other people may not go through, that doesn't make you any less of a human being. Like you're still having a human experience.
Oh, I agree. And especially considering that as he grew up, he basically did not necessarily have a healthy relationship with any of his mother's suitors. Like, there were multiple men that came and went, one of which was an abusive asshole, and they ended up having to leave behind the step siblings that they had in between. I would be very curious to see whether or not how they're doing and whether or not they remember Mason and how they feel about everything that's happened. I think there's also possibilities for him to try to reconnect with his father and his sister, which, even though he does make a connection with his father, his sister and him didn't really have that much of a connection at the end of the movie. She sort of went on her own path just like he did. I think it would also be interesting to see what both of their lives are simultaneously, instead of just focusing on him solely. But at the same time, I also would like to see if he does eventually become a father or is about to be a father, will the fear of his past experiences with his dad and with his other stepfathers sort of scare him out of it? How if you grew up in a household like that, how would you feel about the possibility of being a parent? Are you excited or are you scared of repeating the sins of your parents?
That is also again another great opportunity to like peer into what it means to be an adult or to be an expecting parent. Like how does that actually feel? It could actually transport us into the mind of Mason and I guess in a way sort of prepare us for when we go through that.
Mm. See, that's the thing, and that's the thing I loved about Boyhood. Because if Boyhood was supposed to be the nostalgic, remember how things were when you were a kid, adulthood or parenthood or wherever the hell we're gonna call this sequel. Hopefully, if Linklater is still available and L.R. Coltrane decides to go ahead and do so, but at this point, the boy is already way too old, so that movie is probably never gonna happen as a result of it, unfortunately. But in a perfect world that they were working on this, uh, where the first movie was nostalgic, the second movie could sort of be, I guess what the word is, a cautionary tale, if you want to call it that. Not just a cautionary tale, but also a look of what you can expect and how to feel when you expect it.
If for nothing else, this will make a great horror movie.
Oh, you said a horror movie?
Yes. Like for him, Mason is tackling taxes in this movie. Ah.
Oh God! Don't even joke about that. Oh God! It's like
I
I
had
mean,
to, man. As great of an idea as this is, it was right there.
I just keep imagining like the movie kind of decided to go off the rails and do like a cool sort of action movie montage like they do with Hot Fuzz. Like instead of him like prepping up or getting shit ready, it's just Mason doing paperwork, and all that paperwork is just him doing taxes.
Nice. The
Jeez.
most exciting movie of the year.
Oh my god, I can just imagine, like, no, even better, have his partner, whoever it is, instead of like, they go to bed together, and instead of them getting it on, they instead decide to do their taxes together. It's just a 3 minute long shot of them doing their taxes, covering their debits and credits, asking each other questions. It's like, honey, how much did we spend on this? Did we use a credit card for that? And in my mind, I'm just thinking, people are gonna be so horrified by this, but at the same time, couples are gonna be like, I relate to this. My husband and I do this all the time. And I'm like, you and your husband must be a very boring couple.
Oh gosh.
Hey, no offense to any couples who do that, but yes, you're boring. I'm sorry. I had to say it.
Now, to be fair, taxes are boring in and of themselves, so
Exactly. And it's so stupid because the government can easily do them for free, but instead decide to put the responsibility onto us.
yep. We live in a society.
Ay, Joker was right. Thanos was right as well. In
Yep.
a, and you know what the sad thing is? The Joker does his taxes. Does the Batman do his taxes?
Yep. That's one thing that the Joker is absolutely terrified of. He's not afraid of Batman, but he is afraid of the IRS.
Aren't we all? I mean, the IRS tried to get me arrested last year, so
Oof.
yep. So, while I contemplate on whether or not the FBI is going to be listening to this podcast, do you have anything you would like to add, Diego?
I do actually have a second idea. So, this movie is actually beloved, unlike Van Helsing was. And it's a slightly more exciting film than I may have warranted because I was definitely just doing this before we started the podcast. But as I was writing it out, I was like, I kind of want to see this now, and that is Galaxy Quest 2.
Oh my god. This movie, I remember when this movie first came out, and you see, I didn't have the internet at the time, so I didn't have an opinion on it when I saw it. So I looked at it and I thought, this is pretty cool. It's actiony, it's spacey, it's like Star Wars, but it's funny. But I never thought in a million years that this little movie from my childhood would become this big icon for Star Trek fans and even some filmmakers who thought it was a masterpiece, like J.J. Abrams.
Honestly, it was so influential. Like, if you think about the impact that Galaxy Quest had, it was only just supposed to be like a silly, like, I guess, tribute to Star Trek.
So,
And it in the years after it came out, it sort of like transitioned into like having its own independent status. It's like it's its own fandom all on its own. I mean, you see people at Comic-Con dressing up as Thermians, and it's freaking amazing. Like the amount of dedication that people put into this. It was just one movie, which is a damn shame because there's so much potential for a sequel. And look, I understand that it's been some time since the original came out and the original cast has gotten older. And also Alan Rickman, poor guy, may he rest in peace. But this next movie could ideally feature like a lot of the same, like I get not necessarily beats, but also like I guess hits of nostalgia, but also like it feels fresh enough. Because okay, so like I guess I'll just get into what my idea for the plot is. So we focus on the cast of the original as minor supporting characters, but we're also bringing in a new cast as the lead actors who are just signed on for a biopic based on the first events of the first film. So it's kind of meta in that way. And then suddenly the Thermians show up once again because ever since then they've been rebuilding their homeworld after what happened with Ceres in the original film, and they're trying to connect to other civilizations and sort of branch out and create like a network. They've run into a snag, and that snag takes the form of a virus that's wiping out the galaxy and is threatening to wipe out Earth. And they turn to the only people they think they can think of for help, which are the cast of the quote unquote historical documents that comedically are now a biopic, so it's technically true. And these guys are the twist is that these guys are not Jason Nesmith and Alexander Dane from the original movie. They're a completely different set of people who are playing Jason Nesmith and Alexander Dane in the biopic. So we could throw in some excuse that the virus killed the original leader of the Thermians, which is Mathazar, and that nobody knows what the original cast actually looked like, or whatever. We could write that away. And this could actually switch up the dynamic between the cast and the Thermians because now the Thermians who are asking for help are being exploited by the cast who have been approached by the US government to prioritize protecting Earth from this virus over the rest of the universe. It's kind of it makes it a little more political, but it also, I guess, adds more intrigue to it. And there could be like this antagonistic group of aliens that are like the ones behind the virus and all that stuff. And I think it could actually serve to be a really powerful plot, like a genuinely interesting plot, but also expands the franchise and gives people something more Galaxy Quest to see that I feel like people have been wanting for a long time because people love the original Galaxy Quest, and I think it's about time we get a sequel to it.
oh my god, I agree. And even though, like you said, some of the cast are older and unfortunately Alan Rickman has passed away in 2016, uh, I would happily love to see a sequel, and I would love to see it go full meta, and basically also kind of like poke fun at not only sci-fi movies of right now, but also sci-fi movies and television in general. Like with all the new stuff that's been released, like Star Trek Discovery, the Orville, and hell, even some classic stuff like Battlestar Galactica. Like I see potential for jokes and for a lot of amazing commentary that can be made. And hell, since J.J. Abrams is a big fan, he can basically use this as an opportunity to apologize for whatever the hell the Rise of Skywalker was.
Let's not talk about the Rise of Skywalker. I get mad.
But don't you get it? They fly now. They fly now. They
Somehow
fly now.
Palpatine returned.
Fuck you. Oh
Oh
god.
God,
Jesus.
I can't with this movie. But yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And if J.J. Abrams is a big enough fan of Galaxy Quest to make a sequel to it, or at least be involved as like a producer or something, I would honestly welcome him because he is a guy who has talent. It's just, everybody has a bad day at work, I guess.
hmm Like maybe cut off the lens flares and maybe work on the script and not try to please the let's not try to please the insurrectionist crowd. But that's just my opinion.
Yep. I don't think. Well, the good thing is I don't think Galaxy Quest necessarily has an insurrection crowd because I don't feel like the franchise is big enough.
I mean, it's Star Trek fans, and you know that there's certain Star Trek fans who only just recently realized that Star Trek has been woke since the 60s.
Yeah, that's actually true.
Oh my
And
goodness.
honestly, it kind of makes me mad that people are this stubborn about space fiction, and that they just don't allow new ideas to be made.
Oh no, they do allow new ideas. They just want those ideas to revolve around white people.
White men.
Exactly, I forgot. No. Because if I put women in there, then they're gonna be like, they better be wearing little to no clothes and be slaves or something. Fuck you, Do Me 22 on YouTube. But a sequel to Galaxy Quest, I think is one that I would absolutely enjoy. And I'm gonna say this, before we talk about any other about our next movie, in honor of Alan Rickman, who passed away in 2016 again, I think it's only fitting that I say this. By Grabthar's hammer, by the sons of Warven, you shall be avenged.
Always.
Oh my god, that is just that would be amazing.
He
So,
he he was one of the best that ever lived, and one of the best we ever lost, man. I'm telling you.
oh my goodness, it was definitely hard to. It was a hard day to work when I got that news, and 2016 in general was just difficult, very
Yeah,
very difficult. So
yeah.
let's see here. What else can we talk about here? Uh, I actually did have one particular movie as well that I would mind talking about. But while I'm thinking about it, how about you go ahead? Do you think you have another one that you would like to talk about as well?
I do actually. So let me give you some time, and let's talk about a movie from 2008, starring Steve Carell, Anne Hathaway, and Alan Arkin, and it is called Get Smart.
Oh my
Uh,
god! You're talking about
everybody,
the movie based on the show by Mel Brooks.
yes,
Oh my god! Let's go! Let's go! I love this movie. Go on.
everybody who I've talked to who's seen this movie says they loved it. It was funny. It was action packed. It had great characters. They all had such great chemistry. And Steve Carell and Anne Hathaway carried this movie. I gotta say, how often is it that you get to outshine The Rock?
How often
Like
is it that you get to kill The Rock?
I'm telling you, how often does Steve Carell get to kiss The Rock? But
That is true.
going back to the point, it used its actors well, and what I think one of my favorite things about this movie is that it subverted tropes and cliches in the spy genre in a very underappreciated way. Like, for example, the way the titular character is inept and not a bright guy, as opposed to James Bond, for example, who's all calm, cool, and collected 24/7, and he always gets all the women, and he's not insecure about anything in his life. Maxwell Smart was a guy who was just relatable. He was self-conscious about his weight. He was nervous about getting like the big promotion that he wanted to get, and he was sad when he didn't get it. He had goals that were relatable, and he was likable, which was the best part of this whole thing, and why it was so easy to watch. Like this is just like a good comfort movie. But at the same time, I feel like we need a sequel to Get Smart because it left such a good taste in our mouths that it's kind of impossible not to think about this movie and go, what if? Like, what if we had a sequel? Because all the actors eventually came out and said, "Hey, man, it's a real shame that we didn't get a Get Smart 2." And holy shit, there is so much potential. Now, let me be the first to say that I'm not exactly the most informed on the Maxwell Smart series, and I don't understand. I can't even begin to think where a sequel would come from or what ideas it would explore because this is based on a source material. But I would imagine that we would see Siegfried come back, and Chaos attacking like some big thing or whatever, and we would get Maxwell Smart and Agent 99 back together for another like global adventure and have it be just as hilarious as the first one, if not more hilarious. There's so much potential. And there's just so much that we haven't gotten to see. Like, for example, like them becoming a power couple and Siegfried finding perhaps a new henchman who's not the great Kali. There's just so much you could do here, and I'm really sad that we never got a sequel to it, and I really hope we still do someday.
I agree 100%. Like I never got to see the original, which was again created by Mel Brooks, but it is if you know Mel Brooks' comedy style, you know that this shit would have absolutely warranted a sequel, and one that would have probably has been as funny as the first one was. Because while the first movie wasn't the best movie ever, it was definitely one of the more entertaining movies I have ever seen. I actually remember seeing this in theaters and I had a fun time watching it. But since I watched it, it still remains one of the funniest movies I have ever seen, especially considering that all the jokes seem to hit no matter what the joke is. Like I love I love the little homages that they do to the series, to the show itself as well. Like the scene where we see Max going through the doors, which is something that's been parodied on for many times before. But seeing it happen with Steve Carell for some reason just makes it all the funnier, especially when he ends up having to get one of the doors open because he missed his footing and had to wait for it to open again. And it's just funny seeing all this entire premise and all these amazing cast of characters are just too good and too enjoyable not to enjoy. Like everything silly that you can think of happening. It's basically the best comparison that I can make is he's basically Inspector Clouseau but American and a spy.
Yes. Yes.
Like
Just as goofy, just as inept, but at the same time, just as likable.
exactly. Like he's likable, but he's also like even though he's not necessarily the smartest, he's not completely inept. Like he knows how to do his job. He's just a bit of a goof. And even though he doesn't know how to blend in, I mean who the hell rides a Ferrari on the goddamn Russian road and expects nobody to suspect anything? Like the fucking Russian dude's just like, holy shit, a Ferrari, and tried to take a picture of it. That had me laughing so hard.
That's
But
so great. I think my favorite line in Get Smart was the old call forwarding from the shoe phone to the cell phone so you don't know where I am and then I appear on the roof behind you and surprise everyone trick.
no,
You don't remember that scene?
I remember. Yes, I think my favorite one was just the random Bill Murray cameo. Agent 13, you are in a tree.
Will you come back the same way? I felt so
Jeez.
bad, but it was so good.
I know. I legitimately feel like Bill Murray was just slaying inside of a tree, and they decided to film around it because it's Bill Murray. What were you expecting?
Okay, so like here's the thing. I love it when they use like huge celebrities in such tiny roles. Like remember when Brad Pitt was in Deadpool 2?
Yes, for all two
Just
seconds of it.
I freaking loved it. They need to just do more wasteful shit like that because that's freaking hilarious. It pisses people off, but it's also so funny.
Oh my god, yes. I mean, they did something similar with that with the movie Lost City, where Brad Pitt has been promoted like hell and back in the advertising saying that he was gonna be like a comedic like a romantic rival to Channing Tatum for Sandra Bullock's heart. But then spoiler alert, Channing Tatum is actually the good guy here while Brad Pitt gets killed like not even 15 minutes into his appearance, but then he's still alive at the end of it. Like, I like that. Like, when you have big name movie stars in there, but you only use them for like a joke gag, and I think that's hilarious. But
Yes.
What I think the funniest one for me was just one of my favorite moments is when he is talking to Siegfried and he's like, "How do I know you're not control? Well, if I were control, you'd already be dead. If you were control, you'd already be dead. Well, neither one of us is dead, so clearly I'm not in control." And then the fat guy from Borat, he's like, "That actually makes sense."
Yeah, I love that scene. It's so good. I remember that was in the first trailer for Get Smart, and that was when I was like, that was when I knew I was excited for this movie. It's like, holy shit, that is hilarious.
Oh god, did you remember the Great Khali? The cameo from the Great Khali in this movie?
That wasn't a cameo. He was like an actual like supporting role. He was like one of the main guys.
Yes, the Easter Island man.
Oh
As
no, that was
him.
mean. That was mean. He gets made fun of too much, man. I bet he's actually like a nice guy in real life.
I'm sure he is, but he was hilarious in the movie.
He was actually really funny. He was really good. Her sister's such a bitch.
Like they're expecting him, it's like, oh god, he's gonna murder us both, but no, he's actually a sensitive guy who has a really shitty relationship with his sister.
Right. Oh man.
Oh my god,
Ah,
this movie definitely. Imagine if they do a sequel and they get other like celebrity cameos, well, not so much cameos, but get other big name wrestlers in roles like those. Like, imagine we got somebody like Roman Reigns or Chris Jericho or somebody like that. Like,
that would
just
actually be pretty sweet.
I know, and oh hell, I mean hell, we've already had The Rock in the first movie. Why not have somebody like I don't know, like CM Punk or Kofi Kingston or whatever?
Or John Cena, but you know, we wouldn't tell.
Oh please, no. John Cena would be invisible in that movie because nobody can see him.
Right. Uh, it's, but listen, if they do more jokes like that and just capture like the friggin' whole like the hero was just so unique and like it's kind of hard to describe just what made it so unique, but it was just it hit so hard every single time.
It's like this is a movie that is relatively cool and calm and doesn't really require much thinking, and that's perfectly fine. And not every comedy has to be this cerebral film where everybody's depressed and heartbroken, but it has that one moment where look, it's funny because he's asking for help and nobody is helping him, and it's like this isn't funny. This is just depressing. Like
Right.
you know what I mean? Those quote unquote comedies that would actually look at them, it's actually really horrifying and depressing. Like the show Shameless, where they had a trailer where it's supposed to be funny because they're poor, and he's asking, and it cuts to him asking for money on the street while carrying his, I think it's supposed to be like his grandson or something on his chest. And it's like, is this supposed to be funny or uncomfortably sad? I'm confused.
I honestly didn't know Shameless was a comedy. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not exaggerating. I just found out right now that it was a comedy.
I don't believe it's a comedy. Like they can call it whatever the hell they want, but I refuse to accept that that was supposed to be a comedy. Like it's
Right.
like that show Transparent with Jeffrey Tambor, which is supposed to be a comedy, but then we actually watch it and oh my god, they're talking about very heavy and serious subject matter. It's like that one SNL sketch where they try to promote this really depressing drama, but they keep calling it a comedy, and they keep showing you all their biggest hits, and everybody's basically trying to make a big deal about how funny it is, but then you actually see the clips, and it's all very depressing and very serious stuff. And the only reason they're doing it is because they're trying to get fancy with the awards people. It's like you don't need to try so hard to be serious and call yourself you can just be a stupid little comedy. It's okay. We're not asking you to be the next Doctor Strangelove. Like
Let me let,
just
let's make an announcement here for the people in the back. Movies do not need to win awards to be good.
exactly like if awards were the only thing that made movies what they are, Shawshank should have won Best Picture over Forrest Gump.
I mean, I liked Forrest Gump. Honestly, I think they both have equal claim to Best Picture, but that's just me.
Forrest Gump is fine. But before I get into that discussion, yes, Get Smart definitely deserves a sequel. And you know what would be even funnier if he's still alive in the future? Have Mel Brooks make a cameo in there, or hell, have him be like a surprise villain or something.
That would be sweet.
Or hell, maybe make like a connection for some of his movies, like have him be the president from Spaceballs, and have this sort of be like a pseudo prequel to Spaceballs. So it's like Spaceballs the prequel.
Nice.
He's like, I don't know what to do. I'm a president.
Even in the future, nothing works.
Jesus. Oh my god, I love that movie. And by the way, Spaceballs is one of those movies that I think honestly should also get a sequel. And this one is one that was joked about in the movie itself, but wow, this is a really good segue. But it never actually materialized, despite the fact that there were talks about it happening. Spaceballs: The Quest for More Money.
Yes.
So,
yeah, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I mean, there's really not much I can say about that, except if they were to do a sequel, they would probably have to parody all of the new Star Wars stuff and all the new Star Trek stuff that's already been made, but that will basically just make it another Galaxy Quest. Instead of it being tongue-in-cheek and meta, though, it would just be a straight-up, look, it's like Star Wars, but it's stupid and silly.
Okay, so let's talk about Mel Brooks's comedy for a second, if I may.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Mel Brooks's comedy is very unique, specifically because, like back in the old days, it was meant to purposely be inflammatory and offensive. And I think, given what the new Star Wars movies tried to achieve but didn't really succeed in, which was to be like socially aware and all that stuff, but instead we're really just pandering. I think we would be kind of going into like rocky waters, like we would getting into potentially dangerous territory. And I think as long as they try to just make it a sequel to Spaceballs, not necessarily jab at the things that the Star Wars movies tried to do and failed to do, I think as long as we do that, it could actually be really good and be really entertaining.
As a matter of fact, that actually does feel like it would actually be the better route to take when it comes to that, now that I think about it.
Because you remember Blazing Saddles.
Yep, and let me tell you, I love Blazing Saddles, but I feel like Blazing Saddles is one of those things that would definitely. It's one of those things that would definitely work today. The problem is, if it were released today, people would be complaining about it, but not the people you think. It's not the people who are going to be thinking this movie is offensive, this shouldn't be made, they're saying the N word a lot. No. The people who would be complaining about would be the people that this movie would be equally making fun of. And that is the people who will be calling this woke or SJW propaganda or whatever other nonsense that they're talking about. Because, yeah, they're saying a lot of offensive stuff, but they're making fun of you. And the fact that you only just now realized that you were the butt of the joke the whole time is embarrassing on your behalf.
And that John Wayne and Clint Eastwood were actually high-key offensive.
Exactly! And also, fuck Clint Eastwood and fuck John Wayne. Fuck both of them equally. John Wayne especially considering that, I keep forgetting her name. The name
Sacheen Littlefeather.
Yes! Thank you. When Sacheen Littlefeather gave her speech at the Oscars, which, by the way, the Academy was trying very hard to prevent her from doing because they were basically trying to stop her from causing any sort of disruption. Fuck you on that part. He had to be restrained because he was nearly this close to hitting her.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, I'm just glad that she passed away after they publicly apologized for their behavior and apologized directly to her, because good lord, that would have been horrible if she had passed away and then they decided to apologize.
Yeah. But let's go back to Mel Brooks and Spaceballs 2, because I feel like we're getting a little off topic here. I think. Yeah, it's all right. At least we're having a good time. But Spaceballs 2, I think as long as they go the route that you're suggesting, I think it could actually be a good idea. And here's the thing: like if you're suggesting that Mel Brooks could actually make this an actually relevant like satire, not just a parody, but a satire of the Star Wars films, I think you could be onto something that could actually be necessary and honestly kind of intriguing to me.
It would, because it would very well play out through all the different jokes and all the different things that have since become a thing. I can honestly see this not only tackling sci-fi, but also tackling actual subject matter in today's world. Like, we're not just talking about social justice, but also political stuff, things with the ways that the government is being handled, the way social media responds to certain things, like I can just imagine whoever the main characters are, they do the right thing, they save everybody, but at the end, instead of being rewarded with riches, they instead get rewarded with protesters who found out that they did some really stupid things in the past, and even though they apologize for it, they still want their heads on a platter. It's
God
like
forbid people actually change for the better.
it's like I've already apologized, heartfelt, and I did it multiple times. What more do you want from me? We want you to die, but why? Like, did I offend? Did I do something to you? No, but I still think you. Well, Ken, let me stop you right there. If I didn't do nothing to you, then what the hell are you complaining about? Look, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, and I need something to take my anger out on. So you're the best bet. I can imagine them with freaking signs that said, with just one guy in the background saying, "I just woke up." It's just like these people who are complaining, but they don't know what they're complaining about. It just for the joke of it, just having be saying "rabble, rabble, rabble" like they're in fucking South Park.
Oh man, what do you think they could do like to replace Joan Rivers and John Candy?
Oh, that would be so hard to do because I love Joan Rivers and I love John Candy equally in this movie. I would think, in all honesty, they shouldn't even do like they should just follow the Force Awakens route and focus on the new cast, and then have Bill Pullman show up out of nowhere as sort of the Han Solo of the group, and he laments on where Barf is, but instead of him looking at it sad, he instead thinks wherever he is, he's doing much better than we are right now. Where's that? Retirement.
That could actually be pretty cool.
Yes.
The Millennium Winnebago.
Oh. God damn it, I love that. I actually, now that I think about it, the original Spaceballs had a cameo from the actual Millennium Falcon, if you remember.
Feel like I do. I was at the bar with John Hurt, right?
Yes. Oh my god, John
Okay.
Hurt. Not again.
Ah man. Rest in peace, John Hurt. You were really one of the greats.
He was. Oh, and I also realized this could also be a good opportunity for them to also spoof a couple of other movies as well that were also in the sci-fi genre, but not necessarily space related, like Alien Covenant and Prometheus.
Yeah. There's a lot of potential here now because now you got things like the Orville, like you said, and Star Trek Discovery, and you have the whole Kelvin timeline and all that stuff. Just imagine if they parodied the Kelvin timeline from Star Wars or
Uh,
Star Trek.
I would just love if at one point while they're running away from the bad guys, they accidentally break through one of these sets and they come across J.J. Abrams directing a movie and they're like, "I don't know who you are, but fuck you anyways," and they just walk away.
That would be sweet. I bet it would be Mel Brooks that says that.
Yes, that would actually be like the funniest thing ever. It's like, what are they talking about? Everyone says that about me for some reason.
That would be so great.
And then, no, just to make it better, he gets a call from fucking Ryan Johnson who says, "Yep, I've been there." It just, like, the sky's the limit there, and there's a lot of fun shit that you can make fun of and respectfully lampoon as well. But I will be so happy if they also just mock the social media responses to stuff like this. Because let's be honest here, there is no easier target than that of social media.
You're telling me, man. I've kept track of the Star Wars fandom on Twitter and on Facebook and stuff ever since The Last Jedi came out. And for some reason, all the controversial, like casting diverse people should not be controversial. That's just the way the world is, man.
So, like, you assholes had no problem with Lando Calrissian, so you shouldn't have a problem with John Boyega.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
it's like, and even the few legitimate criticism that there are there, they're just criticisms, but that's okay. We should be okay talking about criticisms, and yet everyone is treating this as though it's some big fucking deal. But that's only because whenever people try to have a nice discussion, it gets lambasted by people who are either fuck woke culture, fuck SJWs, and that the other people who are the counters to that, who are basically the pro woke and pro SJW. And let me make this clear. If I had to pick a side here, I will go with the non-racist people and the pro-diversity people 100% of the way. But if I had to, but I'm just saying, like, I'm okay with both sides talking about things. But when I say talking, I mean like actually discussing things and not yelling at each other about whether or not black people and women and gay people or trans people should be allowed to exist. The fact that this is even a thing that people are complaining about is completely off the fucking rails.
Exactly.
It's like,
Exactly.
and I'm bisexual, so if you have a problem with that shit, then you have a problem with me by default. So fuck you and your mother.
Yep. You said a mouthful, man. You said a
Mm.
mouthful.
And trust me, this is me being nice. I can be harder than that.
I
But
know.
because you know me, you know I'm not one to keep my mouth shut over shit like this.
Exactly.
And with Spaceballs, I can happily, oh my god, I can happily see, like, all of these random people just basically being the biggest butt of the joke. Like, imagine if this movie ends and rather than having like a happy ending, it instead gets bombarded by some shitty YouTube channel with a bunch of people talking about it and just being like, this movie it had too many women in it and none of them were sexualized. This is clearly trying to appease to the woke and LGBTQIA white Avenger agenda. And then all of a sudden the actual cast appears out of nowhere and they're like, so what was that you said about women and gay people? And it just cuts to that, and all you can do is hear just the sounds of them getting their asses kicked as it cuts to black and the credits start rolling.
That would be brilliant. That would be
Exactly.
the most satisfying ending.
Exactly. It'll be, you know what that reminds me of? That would be like the ending of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I don't know if you ever seen that.
I have not.
Okay, so kind of diverging here, but the episode's almost over, so who cares? Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is a movie in the View-esque universe starring Jay and Silent Bob from the Clerks movies. And in this movie, Jay and Silent Bob find out that their comic book that they worked on, Bloodman and Chronic, is being auctioned off by Miramax to be turned into a live-action movie. Yes, this was in around the time where movies like Blade and X-Men and Spider-Man were a thing, in case you didn't pick up on the satire. And their goal is to go to Miramax, not to cash in on the whole thing, but because they saw that the comment section, yes, even in 2002, the comment section of forums were still very toxic. They saw that they were making fun of them, and they decided to stop the movie from being made in order to stop people from making fun of them. Spoiler alert for the ending, but at the end they realize they're not going to be able to stop this movie, and at the very least, we can get a commission out of it because it's technically our intellectual property. So they got now over half of what the movie cost to make, which is like over $1 million or some shit like that. And what they do with the money, you know, with all this money, we can buy a lot of plane tickets. And they print out the names of all the people in the comment section of the forums that were shit talking them, and they go to their houses, ask them, did you say this? And when they say yes, they just start beating the crap out of them on screen. It is one of the best movie endings I have ever seen, period.
That's great.
Yes,
That's great.
and it's all a bunch of dumb children, except for one guy who was a priest.
Oh my god.
Yes, I love it. You can't make this shit up. There's even a guy in an office who is in the middle of a business call, but it's like he takes his hand. I was like, "Hang on, I'm in the middle of a call." And they just get impatient and they just start beating him anyways.
Nice.
And the irony,
That would actually That would actually be the perfect ending to Spaceballs 2, you know that.
Actually, oh, you know what? I even got a good one. One of the people that were shit talking this movie at the end of all this is George Lucas.
Wow.
It's like, wow, uh, wow, okay, this is awkward. I mean, like, you know why we're doing this, right? Yeah, I know. Trust me, you're not the first. Just go ahead and get it over with. You know what? I think you've had enough, buddy. We'll see you around. And they just leave.
Right. Poor George.
I know George deserves better.
Yeah.
God, I'm such an asshole.
It's okay. We still love you.
You probably shouldn't, but anyways, I think that about wraps it up for today. You got anything else you want to add, Diego?
I do. I did actually have one more idea, if you wouldn't mind.
No, of course not. Go ahead. What you have in mind?
Okay, I'll make this one quick. So the next idea that I had was for a movie that came out in 2016 that for some reason I didn't see many people going to the theater to see and honestly deserves more recognition. It's The Nice Guys with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. One of the best comedies I've ever seen. Definitely one of the best comedies of the 2010s. Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe were friggin' great together. They had a great dynamic. They both felt very fleshed out characters, but they were also friggin' hilarious. I need to see more of them. I need to see more taking down the government and exploring the seedy world of late 20th century Los Angeles, because you'd be surprised how many stories can come out of that. And also just more comedy and ineptness from our two leads as they go on their next adventure, because I was honestly kind of intrigued by the first movie, and I would love to see another one.
Oh my god. Down with the government.
Yes, eat the rich.
Eat the rich and free the nip.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. This is why we don't have women. This is why women don't watch our show.
Yeah, we have been lacking in that in that area.
Oh god. It's funny though. The one time they started watching our content was when I did my Dear Evan Hansen video.
Yeah, that's honestly very surprising to me.
I mean, not entirely surprising because Dear Evan Hansen was popular around women. But anyways, you were saying when it came to the nice guys.
The Nice Guys is just a very underrated movie, man. And honestly, more people should have seen it in theaters. This is the only movie where I've actually seen like half the theater walk out towards the halfway point of the film because they were just bored with it, or maybe they didn't get the comedy, or they didn't get what the plot was about. It was back when it was the heyday of the Infinity Saga with Civil War had just come out, and we were all looking forward to all these Marvel and Star Wars movies, and everybody wanted more of that instead of more original content like The Nice Guys. And I think that's what really killed it and why so many people have stopped talking about The Nice Guys, which is a shame because we need more original movies.
Oh, I agree 100%. Because even though I enjoy movies in the MCU, I think people have become sort of too dependent on movies like those that they don't start looking forward to films that could actually potentially be good and original. Like, imagine if that same thing happened with Knives Out, for example, which
I mean, and
thankfully
listen,
is,
not
which
it is
is,
getting a sequel, yes.
yes.
Yes, it is actually getting a sequel, but you're absolutely right. It deserves more recognition, and more smaller movies like that deserve recognition.
Agreed, 100%. Because to be honest, if you just rely on movies like those to basically be the highlight of cinema, these movies are not going to be around forever, guys. Like, as much as no matter how, despite the amazing amount of source material that we have, there's not going to be a whole bunch of Marvel and DC movies in the future. Like, that shit is eventually going to end, and you're going to need to go back and get used to new intellectual properties to get excited for. Like, you might as well start now, especially considering that a lot of new properties are pretty fucking good.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, that really does. It really is a shame that a movie this good ended up losing so much money because not a lot of people were as excited for it as they were for something like I don't know, Civil War or Age of Ultron or whatever the hell. I forgot what year this movie came out.
2016.
26. Oh god damn it! I feel so. 2016. I lost track of time.
It's been 84 years.
Oh god, and I still smell the fresh paint. Ooh.
Oh man.
Oh my goodness! It's like, hey, where's the sequel to Titanic? I want to see Jack survive the Titanic and wake up in the world of Inception.
Exactly. Well, we did get that then.
Huh? Actually, you know what? Yes, we did.
Yes.
Surprisingly enough, at least that surprisingly tended to happen, even though that movie was probably a bit more overrated than it had any right to be.
Which one, Inception or Titanic?
Inception. Titanic is fantastic. Inception was just okay.
Okay, see, this is where you and I have like opposite opinions again. We keep running into the same like roadblock here.
I mean, I don't see why, because Titanic was fantastic. Inception was basically, it's basically Paprika, but with Leonardo DiCaprio starring in it.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen Paprika.
Paprika is an anime film. Actually, now that I think about it, a lot of Satoshi Kon's films, Satoshi Kon being the director of Paprika and Perfect Blue, were used as either homages or straight up plagiarism for things like Requiem for a Dream, Inception, and in the most egregious case, Black Swan.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Black Swan is literally just a live action Perfect Blue. The only difference is that it has a scene where Mila Kunis makes out with Jane Foster.
Wow.
Yeah.
It seems to me like Hollywood is running out of ideas, and here we are talking about sequels to movies instead of original stuff.
I think we're basically. I think we only just realized that we're still part of the problem.
Exactly.
God damn it! What is wrong with us?
And we were just trying to have a good time, man.
Yeah. And to be fair, we ended up doing so. And good lord, this took a long time for us to do because shit has been crazy these past few months.
Yeah, it has been, man. Been busy on a lot of stuff. Things are moving forward in the channel. Things are changing.
And now I think it's gonna be a good time for us to really start to get things back into motion. I'm excited for the future, and I'm sure you guys are as well. Diego, you got anything to say?
Yes, I do. I just wanted to say that I had a really good time on this podcast, and you guys thank you guys for sticking with us, even though we've been on and off. We've been pretty inconsistent, but I promise you, we're doing our best to get it as entertaining as possible. Thank you, Sebastian, for bringing me back and for giving me this great responsibility. As I said before, I feel incredibly honored, and I'm looking forward to whatever comes next for us.
I can't wait for the future. And for now, I think I can happily say more than anything else that this about wraps up today's transmission. And thank you so much for listening to us. And before we sing out, I'd like to give a special shout out to our patrons of honor: Waiting the Wings, Abigail Verzella, Chelsea A. Crandall, and Kate from KateCast Reviews. If you like what we do here and you would like to see more, check out our YouTube channel for reviews, video essays, let's plays, and more. And if you want to help us keep the lights on this scorching desert we're currently living under, then check out our Patreon page for bonus content and exclusive rewards. I'm Sebastian from Cinemageddon Reviews signing out, and I'll see you on the Wasteland.